Hello, everyone. Rob Guest from football.london here, and welcome to the latest episode of Gold Guest Talk Tottenham, sponsored by NordVPN. Joining me today, it's Alasdair Gold. You well?
Yeah, okay, I think. Hope you are too. I'm kind of trying to process the events of Sunday and a chaotic derby that felt like it was going in one direction, then switched back the other way. And yeah, a bit of a mad one. And then we've got comments from Cristian Romero that have come out as well. Um, Injury issues, suspension issues. It's just a normal week in the life of Tottenham Hotspur, really.
Very much is. We will be reflecting on the 4-3 defeat to Chelsea on Sunday, but before then, we'll start with those quotes from Cristian Romero that have been doing the rounds over the past day or so. So these are quotes that have come from an interview with back in Argentina. Is it Telemundo?
Well, this is where it kind of you can slightly differs. We're not entirely sure whether it's one interview that's been split into a couple of bits and has come out from different sources, or whether it's two different interviews. There's certainly a portion that Telemundo has put out, which is the US-based Spanish-speaking media outlet. They were the ones mainly about Postecoglou, but then there's separate kind of piece of that's come out as well, which it's being claimed it's come from the Universo Premiere podcast. And definitely, I've looked that up online. It seems to have his name in the description and things like that. But again, whether they've taken it or whether it's a separate interview, they're the ones that kind of, let's say, have a little pop at the hierarchy at Tottenham. So, yeah, either way, Romero's been a talkative man for someone that's played 14 minutes the weekend.
It has. I've got the quotes here, so I'll read them out. It's Manchester City competes every year. You see how Liverpool strengthens its squad. Chelsea strengthens their squad, doesn't do well, strengthens again, and now they're seeing results. Those are the things to imitate. You have to realise that something is going wrong. Hopefully, they realise it. The last few years, it's always the same. First, the players, then the coaching staff changes, and it's always the same people responsible. Hopefully they realise who the true responsible ones are and we move forward, because it's a beautiful club that, with the structure it has, could easily be competing for the title every year. Thoughts then, Ali, on those quotes?
Well, actually, there's a couple of words just before that that you didn't include, which made me laugh. It doesn't add to it, but he said, well, the truth is, I would say no comment, but, and then he goes into what you said. And it's like that classic, I'd love to say no comment, but I want to say loads of stuff. Essentially, it's like dropping a hand grenade into a room and then going, I'm off injured for a number of weeks. Yeah, look, I'm sure I wouldn't say it's anything kind of that we haven't heard before in terms of, players over the years have kind of said that maybe ambition-wise the club just didn't go that next step that they wanted them to. Hugo Lloris, of course, said it recently in his book, and he kind of dug out Pochettino and Harry Kane as well as sharing his views on that. So, yeah, it's nothing new in that respect. Obviously, it doesn't paint those at the top and Daniel Levy, I guess, in a good light in terms of, I mean, it's something we've said before on this podcast that, it's a club that is constantly chopping and changing below a certain level at the club. At the top of the club, it's always been the same people for, almost a quarter of a century now. Yeah, underneath, everything seems to be so chaotic. Managers have an average lifespan of about, not lifespan, tenure. That would be really harsh. That's no way to get rid of a manager that hasn't succeeded. They get about 18 months, and that's it. And that's, only adding in Pochettino's 5.5 years, which probably bumps that average tenure up. So, yeah, underneath the people at the very top, there is constant change. And I think that's kind of what he's saying here, really, is that other clubs are doing certain things, but at Tottenham, it's always the players at the first that kind of get the kind of the chop, as it were, and then the coaching staff changes after that. I would probably say it's the other way round. I actually think it's the coaching staff that are always looked at the scapegoat first, and then the players kind of float through various managers without having to really be accountable for it. And then he said it's always the same people responsible. Hopefully they realise who the true responsible ones are. Which, yeah, it's very pointed language, and comes back around to being a beautiful club and all this sort of stuff, and could easily be competing for the title every year. which is an interesting one, because I would say even the clubs that pour money in aren't easily competing for the title. We've seen that. I think it is that as well. I think there's all other things as well that kind of have to be taken into account, but definitely money, of course, plays a part of it. Yeah, I mean, yeah, like I say, it's nothing that kind of hasn't been echoed among players over the years or pundits, or I saw Jamie Carragher kind of sounding off as well about it in the on Sky after the derby as well. And obviously, I don't think he'd seen the Romero quotes at that point as well. What do you make of it?
They're interesting. I think he's certainly got a fair point. I mean, look at the likes of City and Liverpool. They strengthen every year, even if it's just bringing one player in. You can't afford to stand still in the Premier League. I mean, that's what Spurs did summer of 2018. I think that was the year there was no new signings at the club. And whilst that season they did go on to reach the Champions League final, didn't do so well in the league, only reached the Champions League on the last day. And then since then they have fallen behind a bit. But I mean, he mentions Chelsea as well, and everyone was laughing at Chelsea and just splashing this cash all over the place, this £1 billion or whatever. But looking at the league table now, you'd say they're banging the title race the way they're going, because they're only going to get better. Scoring for fun at the moment. But I mean, in terms of Tottenham's transfer window, if you're looking have they improved the starting 11 from last year? They've just spent big money on Dominic Solanke. I think they made some decent purchases in the likes of Archie Gray, Lucas Bergvall, but these are more like players for the future rather than the here and now. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens in January now in terms of Tottenham's transfer stance. I mean, they're going to have to strengthen the squad because I mean, there's barely anyone available at the moment. I think you said to me yesterday, I think we'll be bringing our boots soon to play for them at the rate it's going at the moment. But yeah, they need to strengthen, and it's about bringing in players now who can go into that starting 11 and help kick the team on even further.
Absolutely. This is the thing. It's like, I think some people kind of claim that you and I were like really delighted and happy with the transfer window. We weren't. We said they brought in some really good young players, and obviously Solanke we were delighted with. But I remember us clearly saying at the time that there were areas that they didn't address. And, you know, it was essentially the left side of the defence was a big area, both central and left back. I remember very clearly at the time was kind of saying it's great what they've done in terms of the young players for the future, but you also need to blend that with something for the now. And, you know, Archie Gray's already played quite a big part. By necessity, he's had to as well. And over the next couple of weeks, looks like he'll play even more of a part. But yeah, I mean, we should probably also mention the other section of the Romero quotes as well, which were really behind Postecoglou, where he said, he's a great coach. We saw it in the first season. In the second season, we've suffered a lot of injuries. Players are the first ones to be criticised. And if we lose 10 games, staff will be changed. And nobody talks about what's actually happening. We're very happy with this staff, me and my colleagues. We love how they work and the football they try to play. We'll try to move on quickly. So, yeah, there's always been, I mean, Postecoglou loves Romero, doesn't he? And clearly there's a kind of a mutual affection there as well. And, I mean, we're going to talk about this in a moment, but you could see the way they tried to play on Sunday. The players are absolutely behind Postecoglou 100%. There's, you know, you don't score 3 goals against Chelsea right now in the way they're playing if you're not completely behind your manager and trying to win games for them and trying to play the way they want you to play. But yeah, it's some big talk from Romero. It's just such a shame that having missed a chunk of action, it looks like he's going to miss another chunk of action. Certainly reports from Argentina are suggesting up to 6 weeks with this latest quad muscle injury. We'll see. We'll get Postecoglou tell us a little bit more tomorrow, but the journalist that's kind of broken in Argentina, I think, has very close ties to the Romero camp. So it seems to be they often get most of the stuff right because it's coming probably from the, if not the player, then certainly the people around him. So yeah, it's I'd love to know kind of what happens next in terms of Romero. Does someone like Daniel Levy have a word? Do they call them in kind of thing as their employer, or do you just kind of have to accept like, you know, that's going to happen? That's kind of par for the course. You're going to get called out by the odd player once in a while, I don't know. But as always, Postecoglou is going to be the one that's going to have to talk about it publicly, because the people at the top at Spurs very rarely talk. It's left to Postecoglou to be asked the questions tomorrow in Glasgow.
Yeah, he's going to be in front of the media. Is it just before 6 o'clock? He's due to speak, and there's going to be a number of topics on the agenda, especially his future as well, because that's been a big talking point in recent weeks, and none more so than on Sunday after throwing away a 2-goal lead against Chelsea. We reported yesterday that, it's Daniel Levy and Spurs are maintaining the backing of Postecoglou, and I think that's what a lot of fans want as well, because, we've seen what Spurs can do, but these injuries are just absolutely killing Spurs right now. And there was Romero, Van der Ven, Brennan Johnson going off in the Chelsea game, Bissouma as well, picking up 5th yellow card of the season, so he's suspended for the game at Southampton on Sunday. So just everything that could go wrong for Postecoglou and Spurs right now is.
Yeah, I think I wrote it in my talking points. I can kind of compare it to a boxer trying to fight an opponent, and then someone from over the ropes keeps slapping in the face from the side every time he tries to go forward and hit him. I asked him about it after the game on Sunday. I kind of said how frustrating it is to have so many uncontrollables as well that you've got to deal with. And he said, that's exactly it. They're uncontrollables. I've just got to focus on what I can kind of do in front of me and what the team I've got available each week. Because look, I know you could quite easily point to the way he plays, the way he trains, Postecoglou, as leading to some injuries. I would say that's probably more the hamstring injuries. And there's 3 of those. I don't think you can legislate for Romero coming back in and after 14 minutes getting a completely different injury, managing to kind of come off injury. I don't think you can legislate for Brennan Johnson feeling ill at half time. I don't think you can legislate for Bentancur saying something utterly stupid about Son and getting himself banned for a while, or even Mikey Moore having a virus and things like that. It's just, there's so many little things that have kind of really compromised what he can do in terms of rotating the squad. Yeah, there's certain decisions he's made himself, like probably Jed Spence being one of them, where he could have rotated a little bit more. But certainly we're at a point where the Postecoglou football needs constant changes. It needs the ability at 60 minutes to bring on 3-4 players, whatever, to kind of give the fresh energy and impetus and without dropping the level. And he just hasn't been able to do that. People like Bissouma have been overplayed, and it means I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt, so maybe he's mentally tired, which is why he does something utterly stupid like he did on Sunday. But yeah, I think that's why the backing is still there. I think there's an element of understanding at the top, hopefully, that there's just so many injuries that, anyone's going to struggle. You could bring someone else in right now and they're just facing all the same problems. Nothing really changes. And also, hopefully, I say massively with a big underlined, hopefully, they understand that transfer window that we're talking about, that, you bring in one player to improve your first 11 and the rest are very young players who can kind of do a job to a degree right now, but mainly for the future. And if you're going to have a transfer window like that, you're taking a long-term view. So how can you then take a short-term view with the manager? It doesn't really tally up. So hopefully that's where we're at right now. Of course, the way football is, if he has an absolute disaster for the rest of December, then you never know whether minds change on this or not. But right now, certainly the players seem to be behind him quite strongly. And the board or the hierarchy are backing him at the moment as well. So hopefully, using that word a lot of times, I feel like now, we're always looking to hope. Hopefully he can turn it around now and start getting those results. Because yes, the results on paper don't look good enough at all, but we know there's underlying circumstances to a chunk of that.
Yeah, you can tell how bad the situation is at the minute by just watching back the Spurs-Chelsea game and the amount of times the TV camera kept panning to Daniel Levy in the stands. It must have been about 3 or 4 times.
Such a cliche, isn't it?
Especially in the second half when the team did capitulate and, give away that lead in the end with Chelsea coming from behind. But, I mean, we mentioned that on the last podcast. You just can't keep sacking managers every time you go through a tough period, and especially when this is, a bit of a project and starting again. Everything's not going to run smoothly. There's going to be, ups and downs, and we're seeing, a big down at the moment in terms of the results. But on paper, when you're looking at the games this week, it's probably ideal fixtures.
Oh, don't say that.
No, but especially when you've got Manchester United in the cup and Liverpool coming up, you've got Rangers who are 11 points behind Celtic in the Scottish Premiership this season.
Yeah, they're doing all right in Europe.
Yeah, but Scottish Premiership, bread and butter. You should be competing with Celtic. We shouldn't be 11 points behind after 15 games there, whatever. Then they've got Southampton at home, Southampton away, the bottom club, on Sunday. So, as I said, on paper, looks like ideal fixtures, but that's where the danger lies, because Rangers and Southampton will be sensing a big opportunity there against Tottenham. I mean, I was looking at the possible changes Ange can make for the Rangers game, and we will come on to that later in the podcast, but that shows like the limited options he's got. The minute you're literally talking a couple of changes here and there.
Yeah, we'll come to that. I think I was trying to work out in my head. I think there's a couple more. It just depends how. It sounds bad, but essentially how much you want to weaken the squad right now when you're kind of chasing wins as well. And I know he'll hate that. He doesn't like the idea of chasing wins. You shouldn't be like desperate. You should be playing your football, and the win should come through that. But still, yeah, I mean, even like resting Dominic Solanke and bringing Will Lancashire in now because he's back from his suspension, it's like that would keep Solanke fresh for Southampton, but would it kind of decrease your chances of winning in Ibrox? So, yeah, I agree. I think there's only probably 2 or 3 really obvious ones that he could make, which kind of are probably going to happen, some of them as well. But yeah, it's a really, really weird time, and that's why you worry me talking about these teams that the ideal opponents, all this, because Spurs this season have proved teams down the bottom of the league looking for their first win. They've been very generous. I mean, oh, here you go, let us help you, and Rangers as well. The atmosphere there, like a bit of a Battle of Britain game, and Postecoglou going back to his rival's backyard and all that sort of thing. Yeah, it's not going to be easy at all.
No, it won't. Before we discuss Sunday's game against Chelsea, Ali, do you want to let everyone know about the benefits of using our sponsor, NordVPN?
Yes, well, if anyone's looking for a kind of a winter getaway, which I must admit at some points during Spurs' recent performances, I have wanted to do that myself. One of the best things you can kind of arm yourself with is NordVPN, because it's the fastest VPN in the world. There's no buffering, there's no lagging, and you can stream your favorite shows from anywhere in the world without your bandwidth throttling. Something I've used many, many times over the years, whether it's through work or through holiday, just to be able to access things that I would want to watch normally at home by setting my device to thinking it's back in the UK, or the flip side of that is to make my device, if I'm in the UK, thinking it's somewhere else in the world. And that could help me through streaming some shows I want to watch, streaming some sport perhaps, or just, even a security aspect of it, and being able to use your phone without worrying about those nasty people that get onto public Wi-Fi and take things off of your devices. So yeah, it's a very, very useful tool, and it is one that I've used many times over the years. And not only that, but to get the best discount off your NordVPN plan, you can go to nordvpn.com/goldguest, and our link will give you 4 extra months on the 2-year plan. There's no risk with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee, and in case you missed it just there, the link is in the podcast episode description box.
So going back to Sunday's game against Chelsea, 3 days earlier, Spurs had lost 1-0 at Bournemouth. Terrible showing on the South Coast. Spurs needed to make a really good start against Chelsea, and that's exactly what they did. I think what certainly helped matters was the fact that Cristian Romero and Mickey van der Ven were back in the team ahead of schedule, especially van der Ven, because Postecoglou said ahead of the game that they were probably looking more like the Rangers game for his return, but he trained, felt well and wanted to play, so he came straight back in the team. And what a start as well for Spurs. Dominic Solanke and Dejan Kulusevski scoring inside the first 11 minutes, certainly aided by Mark Cucurella's slips and those dodgy boots he had on to begin with. And it just all looked to be going so well for Spurs.
Yeah, I like the match of the day 2 analysis where they worked out he changed from studs to studs. And it wasn't even like he was just blaming the boots when he clearly was just off balance. It was a brilliant start. It was so good. Solanke's movement for the first goal, brilliant. Kulusevski's finish, it was like the only kind of place he could have put that shot. Yeah, it was terrific. And the whole stadium was rocking. It was absolutely, everyone was thinking, right, this is it. This is what they need. And it's just like things are there to just batter Spurs down, aren't they? So Romero goes off. 2 minutes later, Sancho hits a lovely shot, to be fair, in off the right-hand post. Probably given too much room. I think it was maybe Bissouma didn't close him down. But still, even at half-time, you're thinking, okay, 2-1, that's good. You build on that. But second half, I know it was an hour in until Chelsea were able to get an equaliser, but still, just something about that second half. I think the midfield, they got on top Chelsea. They kind of used the kind of this extra man in the middle that just seemed to be finding so much space, whether that was like Palmer or Caicedo. And yeah, it just, Spurs kind of lost their way for a bit of a crucial spell. And then Bissouma pops up with one of the stupidest tackles I've seen in a long time, or attempted tackles.
You just knew it was coming. As soon as he went to ground, everyone in the stadium knew what was happening. And I think Bissouma was just trying to atone for losing the ball down Chelsea's right flank to Pedro Neto, and then just comes steaming in and Stonewall penalty. You can have no arguments whatsoever. And I think if you watch it back, the reactions of Dominic Solanke and Timo Werner just say everything. Then Solanke and Werner, they just stood there with their arms out like that, like, what are you doing? Like, how stupid can you be? And it's just brain dead stuff, really. It's just not thinking at all. But we've seen this from him so many times in the past. The red cards that he's picked up, just giving away needless fouls and that. And yeah, this latest one sees him pick up his 5th yellow card of the season, misses Sunday's game at Southampton now. You just can't legislate for stuff like that. And when things are just going wrong for you, everything just like that just happens. It's crazy, and not helps at all by just rash decision making from an experienced midfielder.
Well, that's it, isn't it? That's the crux to it all. 28 years old. He put an apology out on social media after the game, which I mean, fair play for doing it, because not many players do. They kind of just move on with their lives and all this sort of stuff and leave the fans to wallow and suffer. But he did come out. But what I would say is, the kind of the terminology and the things he was saying as well, it was all like, I don't know if I've got it here. Things like, I'll learn from this one. It's time now to show the real me. It's like, you're 28. Why are you still learning from stuff? Last season he had 3 separate suspensions, 2 red cards, 1 accumulation of bookings, and obviously we had the incident in the summer with the nitrous oxide and all of that. It's like, well, what point do you learn? It's just crazy. And the real me, what's the real him? Is it the one at Brighton? Is it the one who, was certainly, I don't know, maybe more consistent in terms of, I suppose he kind of alternated. Sometimes he was an 8, wasn't he, for Brighton rather than a 6. And maybe that's the key to getting more out of him, is to maybe he is a converted 6 rather than someone that should be there. One quick question before we kind of come away from it. Caicedo, should he have even been on the pitch at that point?
It's a red card. I mean, fair enough. If the referee misses it, whatever, if you don't have a good view of it. But then for VAR to look at it and, like, not even at the very least recommend for the ref to go over to the screen and have a look at it.
Yeah.
I just don't know how you can watch it back and say, no, not a foul at all, nothing wrong with that. When he clearly catches him, and it's pretty much exactly the same tackle as Romero did on Enzo Fernandez last November in the game at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium when they lost 4-1.
I think Romero actually eventually got the ball.
Yeah, very similar. I don't think there was any intent to do him or anything. It was just mistimed, and just one of those things. But what I would say as well, I thought Kulusevski was very lucky to stay on the pitch as well. When he
I haven't seen a replay of that, but everyone's saying that. Yeah,
he was showing replays. I'm thinking, like, why are you VAR looking at this first of all? Because I was looking for the contact with the legs, and then you see it goes in with a raised elbow and catches Levy at the side of his head. So he could have easily gone for that, and he could have had no complaints about that, because I mean, you can't do that and put yourself in a position like that, because you're just asking for a red card. But for whatever reason, maybe it was because they didn't give Caicedo a red card, then does that mean, no, we can't give him a red card for that? I don't know how it worked, but both of them could have easily been sent off. And let's be honest, on another day, probably would have been sent off.
Yeah. So what you're saying is it cancelled itself out anyway, and that way Spurs would have lost Kulusevski for 3 games. So maybe you have to take the hit. I can't afford to lose anyone else. I thought it was a red card. Like I say, and I know this isn't me doing an Arsene Wenger impression. I genuinely haven't seen a replay of the incident. All I've seen is Levy on his Instagram. He's got shown his cut, hasn't he, on the side of his head. So he clearly did catch him quite badly. But yeah, on the Caicedo challenge, it's high. It's up his shin. I think Sarr's lucky that his foot wasn't planted. Otherwise, he really could have been in some problem. But yeah, I mean, it doesn't excuse who it is. Bissouma should not be steaming into a stupid challenge like that. And they still had a big chance after that, Spurs, didn't they? Not long after.
Yeah, through Sonny.
Yeah.
I don't know if this one would have counted. I don't know what would have happened. I'm not so sure. I think it'll have probably gone to VAR and they'll have took 10, 15 minutes over it, deciding, should it count or not? Because although Doggy doesn't go for the ball, he makes a move and then the Chelsea defender stops.
But you know what? I looked it up, unless I was a cursory glance of the rules, to be fair. So I may not have seen some of the minutiae that should have been maybe in other parts of it. But from what I could tell, to be considered offside or in an offside situation, you've got to either touch the ball or be considered to be blocking an opponent from getting to or seeing the ball. So that's why the goalkeeper one is, and that's, if you're stopping a play getting there. He didn't technically do any of those things. He just went towards a ball. Everyone stopped, even though there wasn't a whistle at that point, because they assumed he was offside. And then he kind of put his hands up, didn't he? I think Sonny must have shouted at him, "Leave it alone." So, I don't know. I think it's one of those that it might have got looked at. Chelsea players would have gone mad, but actually I think it might have still stood at the end of it and been a real controversial goal thing.
Yeah, regardless, Son, bad miss. Should be, at the very least, hitting the target there. In that position, because we've seen him do it time and time before. But yeah, that big turning point in the game, that one. I'm sure there's probably been an example like that in the Premier League since VAR's come in, when someone's either interfered or not and been close to the ball and someone's gone away and scored. But yeah, I don't know which way that had gone. I think that had been a long check on VAR.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And yeah, Sonny's miss was poor, and there's even maybe a chance to square it across to Werner. And I know that's a scary thing with Werner sometimes in front of goal. That kind of avenue did close off quite quickly, so it would have to be a very quick decision made. And Sonny is probably going to back himself in that situation to curl it in the corner. But yeah, and again, apology-wise, he came out after the game and rather than moaning about the penalties, he kind of took the responsibility because of that chance that he missed. It was a really good interview. It kind of went into it a little bit on Sky, but actually his club interview, he kind of went into it a lot more. And he just said he felt a little bit different for some reason when he ran into the box for that chance. He just didn't feel his normal self. That could be a confidence issue, maybe. I don't know. But yeah, that was probably a moment when maybe they could have wrestled control back again had that gone inside the post.
Yeah, and then with Spurs missing that chance. Chelsea going 3-2 ahead through Enzo Fernandez. Well taken goal from him, but when you're looking at it from a Tottenham perspective, you've got 3 players around Cole Palmer, who, does get a bit lucky with, I don't know whether it was a shot or a cross into the box, but it takes a nick off Van der Ven, falls kindly to Enzo. But when you freeze it there, you've Enzo on the edge of the area in so much space, and then Jadon Sancho to his left. And again, we've seen this a number of times where there's just an overload on the back post behind Porro, and the opposition always seem to benefit from it. But yeah, not a good one to concede. One that gave Fraser Forster no chance. And I know there's been question marks over Forster being the short-term replacement for Vicario, but other than, some of his passing, which he's not too comfortable with, Bournemouth, prime example when, Evan Nielsen scored and the goal was disallowed. I think he's done well in that with his saves. He did a number of saves against Chelsea, a couple in the first half, one started the second half from Sancho's deflected effort. I think he's done all right, but just had no chance with this Enzo goal.
No, I think Forster's been excellent. I think he's been really, really good. And actually, I'd give him more credit with his feet than people give him. I think he's actually been pretty good with his feet. I mean, he did that kind of Cruyff turn, didn't he? And was it a Bournemouth game as well? I just think sometimes he's tried to play passes to someone in the midfield, and that midfielder has not been switched on, and they should be running back and getting the ball. So they've been challenged by someone else, and it ends up looking like he's played a dodgy ball when the midfielder should be pre-programmed to come and get that ball and spin it out to the flanks. The goal itself, there's too many occasions when Spurs defence gets sucked over to the left-hand side, and I think it was Van der Ven, Udogie and Son maybe all around Palmer.
I think it was Sarr. Sarr was there. Yeah.
And it just kind of, when you've got definitely, because you could definitely see Van der Ven over there, and that's taking away like half of your defence to the left-hand side of the box. And naturally, Dragishin and Porro are going to come across to try and cover behind them. And every time it leaves this gap at the back. And Fernandez had all the time in the world to just kind of crash that shot home. And it's very frustrating to concede, because I'd love to kind of get the stats for it, but that little area, that section of the penalty box must be one of the most scored from areas from a Tottenham perspective.
Oh, 100%. I think the one that sticks out to me, West Ham at home, Leicester away the opening day when Vardy scored as well. Teams are just capitalising on it, and it's something that they need to sort out. As good as Spurs are going forward, defensively at times they do that half let themselves down, concede some sloppy goals, and then again that probably comes back to the question of Ange being a bit more pragmatic, but he's just not gone to, is he? That's just not his style of play, really.
I agree with that, but there's definitely moments where they allow themselves to be open to chances. I would say a lot of it's just poor defending. Moments like that, that's not really to do with a break. That's to do with just inadequate defending of your own box. And 2 penalties where they've dived in really stupidly, and then the Sancho goal is just Bissouma not coming across to try and kind of cover properly. So I know it's the kind of easy go-to thing, and I think that's the kind of his critics will always go to that. But I actually think it's just defense-wise, I still don't think, despite the fact that only 4 teams have conceded fewer goals in the Premier League than Spurs, I still think that defence is not. It's got some players that are very good going forward, but some that are really still learning their trade and defending. They're still, 3 of the 4 are pretty young defenders.
Yeah, and then
all four after Romero. I forgot Dragishin as well.
Yeah, and then Chelsea's 4th goal of the day from the penalty spot once again. Really well taken from Cole Palmer. Panenka down the middle, cool as you like. But from Sarr, that was bad enough from Bissouma, but, Palmer's going nowhere in the box. Just keep him there. You don't need to go crashing into the back of him, and goes down, and referee, easy decision to make by pointing to the penalty spot.
Absolutely. I should just very quickly say, anyone watching us on YouTube, I was just stifling a yawn there, and that wasn't anything to do with what Guesty's saying. He's not boring me in any way. I've just literally come in from a 14-mile run trying to prepare for this ridiculous marathon thing I've decided to put myself in for charity next year. And so just in case anyone saw that, your points were excellent and very valid. I wasn't yawning at them in any way. And yeah, it's first off, Cole Palmer is brilliant, isn't he? He's just such a good player. He's one of those where he would fit into any team in the world right now. He's just that good. I mean, for that first, for the Fernandes goal, the way he kind of tricks his way in between three players is ridiculous. And then that goal as well, he just always was in control of the ball, which makes it all the more maddening that Sarr went in for the challenge, because he's going away towards the corner flag. And you think, what are you doing? What I would give Sarr is the fact that he's 22 years old and he is going to make mistakes like that. I'm not going to give the same to Bissouma because he's a far more experienced player with hundreds upon hundreds of games under his belt. But with Sarr, yeah, that's just this kind of bad decision you're going to get occasionally from a young player. And like you said on the first one with Bissouma, it was one of those where we're all watching it go, no. And everyone around him, like Burval, there's like a shot of him just kind of like, yep, right, okay. It just turns away. There's no complaint. It's just like, yep, nothing we can do about that. And yeah, just obviously turns the game completely on its head that seemed to be going one way in the first half an hour probably or so.
Yeah, Tottenham did get themselves back into it in the final 30 seconds through Son. Some decent footwork from James Maddison in the box and neat and tidy finish from Son, but no time left to mount a comeback. Even though Spurs have done it in the past with only a few seconds left at Leicester City, that time when Steven Bergwijn scored two, but no, ended in a 4-3 defeat, leaves Spurs 11th in the Premier League table. It's 8 points off City in fourth. It's either 7 or 8 points, and then 5 points off Forest in fifth. So again, as we mentioned before, Spurs have been helped by the fact that everyone in the middle just seems to be dropping points, but they need to start getting those wins.
They really do. The irony is it could end up being one of these seasons where they don't do very well in the league and they end up getting a cup, like the Carabao or Europa
Treble.
or something. The treble. But this is the mad thing, isn't it? Is like, I think if you did a straw poll of fans and asked them, would you rather finish, let's say 9th, 8th, 9th, 10th, whatever, but you win a cup, you'd probably bite your hand off because they're just so desperate for the trophies. I don't think Postecoglou would. I think Postecoglou would kind of see that as going backwards in the league. He would, he said it himself already, he'd love to be the man that ends the trophy kind of rot at Spurs, but you don't kind of want it at the expense or at the same time as slipping backwards in the league. He just needs to get some bodies back. He does. Obviously, he kind of got Romero back. It looks like he's losing him again. Van der Ven, we'll see. It was just tightness in his words. So maybe he just doesn't play at Rangers and he's back for the Southampton game, perhaps. We'll find out a little bit more tomorrow. Still waiting on Bentancur. We haven't really heard anything about the appeal to see whether the appeal of the length of the sentence, whether that's done anything. And yeah, it's other than that, Richarlison's put some lovely photos of him back in the gym. It doesn't really mean anything at this point, but he is meant to be in the new year. Mikey Moore, I think it's the turn of the year as well. So they're just going to have to muddle through this December, really, with what they've got. And we're going to see players like Archie Gray and Lucas Burval come to the fore. I think they're going to have to get more minutes under the belt. I thought Burval again was a nice little positive cameo, kind of linked up with Maddison for the third goal as well. And I just keep getting the feeling that he's the one that might be used in this number 6 role. He's looking at him in that role. He's putting him on there. That's 2 in a row now. We spoke about this before. He mentioned him as like one of the first names when he was talking about who could play as a 6. I just wonder whether he doesn't see Gray as a 6, which I kind of feel like with his attributes and the way he's playing in central defence at right back, it kind of lends itself perfectly to being a 6. But we'll see, because Southampton game will give us the answer really of where Postecoglou sees him as fitting in. I think against Rangers, he's probably going to have to be a centre-back, which is a big ask. 18-year-old and 22-year-old as your 2 centre-backs going into Ibrox and the noise and the atmosphere. Ben Davies will be out for a while. I don't think we've had a time on Ben Davies, have we? A kind of a time frame. Don't think that was said. He did finally say Vicario's out for 3 months, though, didn't he?
Yeah, I think probably Davis is the only one without a time frame, and Odebear as well, even though he said Odebear's more likely going to be long term, but it's just when exactly he returns. But have to wait and see with those. So Thursday night, you're heading up to Glasgow to watch Spurs in the Europa League at Ibrox. I mean, just looking at the options available, I mean, it is literally going to be a couple of changes here and there, but I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing, because I think they've got to go really pretty strong, because they need to get back to winning ways. But I think it does look like Archie Gray's going to be playing at centre back. I just won't risk Van der Ven, even if he is fit. I think leave him for Sunday, especially, bit of a quick turnaround as well. You don't want to have another centre back out injured at the moment, but I think it'll be a game Archie Gray relishes, being a Celtic fan, looking to get one over on Rangers, fierce City rivals. But yeah, I think other than that, I think Benteke obviously comes straight back in.
I'm going 4 changes. I think there's 4.
Are you keeping Bissouma in there or not?
No, you could, because but I just think he played 3 games in a week. I don't know whether he's going to be in I mean, it's maybe 3 days in between, perhaps. I suppose you could, but then you're still changing Bentancur for someone.
Yeah. I mean, you can make a case for Bissouma starting because he's not available on Sunday, but I agree with you. I think Bergvall's done well past few cameos. So I think he should start. And I think you've got to start James Maddison. So he needs the minutes and the chance to get back to form. I'd probably push Kulusevski into the right wing. Leave Johnson. We'll find out in terms of the state of his fitness, how he's going to be for Thursday's game when Ange speaks to the press on Wednesday. But I'd probably bump Decky into the front 3. I'd start Werner and then Solanke through the middle. The other choice you could probably make comes in goal, because we've seen Ange, rotate in goal this season. But then again, Brandon Austin's not made a senior appearance for Spurs in a competitive game anyway. I wouldn't be making that change. I'd probably be looking at that change for maybe the Elfsborg game if Spurs are safely through. But no, I'd be keeping Forster in goal.
So how many changes you're making? That's 5, isn't
it? Forster, Gray, Dragusin will be one as well. Benteke 4. That might be about 7 or something.
I was going to say, you came in saying a couple of changes and you ended up changing most of the team.
Handful of changes then.
I'm going for 4. Actually, no, it is 5 because of Dragusin. You reminded me, I completely forgot Dragusin didn't actually start. So yeah, Dragusin and Gray, Maddison and Bentancur, so that's 4. And I think Werner comes in. I don't know whether he throws in Bergvall or whether he brings him on, maybe like he did for Kulusevski on Sunday. Maybe that's the way it happens.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting now. Having a look at the team sheet, it might be a big handful of changes. So there's certainly options for Ange, but not really much to go off at in defence. I think that means Pedro Porro and Destiny Udogie continue at fullback, with Jed Spence unavailable once again in Europe. We'll call it a day for today's latest episode of Gold Guest Talk Tottenham. We'll be back early next week to reflect on the Rangers and Southampton games and hopefully have a bit of a more positive, upbeat episode as well after the recent defeat. So in the meantime, keep with us at football.london for all your latest Tottenham news. To get the best discount off your NordVPN plan, go to nordvpn.com/gold guest. Our link will also give you 4 extra months on the 2-year plan. There's no risk with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee, and the link is in the podcast episode description box.